Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you guys are doing well and you're well prepared for your exam tomorrow. And in case you aren't, Sir Bilal Rana is here to help you out. Sir Bilal has been teaching chemistry for 5 years now in Lahore, and he's a very dear colleague of mine. And I'm really glad that he took out the time to help us out today. So, Sir Bilal, thank you so much for coming in, and I leave these students in your care. So, inshallah, take it away, sir. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Sir Ahmed, for having me in your class. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. And so today, as you all know, that we are going to have this online session for your final exam, which will, inshallah, जो आपका कल इंशाल्लाह आपका एग्जाम है around like morning में. So as you all know that chemistry P2 is the most important exam in your O levels chemistry. So just 1 second, let me share this link in this whole student group. All right, so I hope everyone is here. So we are just waiting for 2 or 3 minutes and then we will start. So as you all know, mashallah, you are a senior student. The subject code for chemistry is 5070. For IGCSE, this is 0620. And we have 80 marks paper with no choice. Just 1 minute. Azan ho rahi hai mere society mein. All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi zidni ilma. So here we go, rapid revision chemistry. You can, if you have any question, you can just write it in the comment section so that I can check. So basically in your chemistry, you all know that there are 12 chapters, and quickly starting with the first chapter. The first chapter is about the states of matter. So I want everyone just to listen. There is no need to note or write anything. I'll share the notes after the class, inshallah. So I want everyone to just listen. So in the first chapter, there are 4 points which are important and they are on repeat. इंशाल्लाह वो क्वेश्चन में भी रिपीट होंगे और अभी भी वो आप देखेंगे हर पेपर में वो आपको क्वेश्चन आए हुए हैं. So states of matter में there are 4 types of question. First, you need to learn the curves. In curves, there are 2 types of curve: heating and cooling curve. In heating curve, the basic structure of the heating curve looks something like this, where on the x-axis we have time or progress of reaction. Along y-axis we have temperature. The basic structure of cooling curves looks something like this, where you actually cool the substance. So time and gain and the temperature. So this part, heating curve starts with solid, then wherever there's a constant temperature, there's a state change. वहाँ पे temperature state change हो रहा है, मतलब दोनों state exist कर रही हैं. So here exist both solid and liquid. Here only the liquid exists, and then liquid and gas on only gas exists. So cooling curve is the new addition to the syllabus, and this curve is very important as well. So you start off with gas, then it becomes liquid at this point. Start becoming liquid, condensation starts, and condensation, after condensation it becomes fully liquid. At this point it start freezing, and at this point it completely become solid, and further temperature is decreasing. The second important point in this particular chapter is about the diffusion. So diffusion, the definition is extremely important. Definition says that the random movement of particle from higher concentration to low concentration is called diffusion. So diffusion, there are 2 factors. Number 1, temperature. Temperature varies directly with diffusion. As you increase the temperature, the particles gain the kinetic energy and they start diffusing at faster rate. And the second important factor is the molar mass. So normally we say that gases at room temperature, we know that room temperature, it is the temperature is equal for both these gases. For example, if you say around any corner of the gas, आप वहाँ से release कर रहे हो hydrogen and CO2 from the another corner. So basically the temperature is same for both these gases. So now we'll see the MR. In the same time, the hydrogen will diffuse faster because the MR of hydrogen is 2 gram and the MR of carbon dioxide is 44 gram. So hydrogen will diffuse faster, and carbon dioxide will hardly diffuse because you can see the difference in the MR. So these points are important in diffusion. Number 3, volume of gas. So volume of gas is extremely important. इसके question repeat होते हैं, 2 question इसमें से आते हैं बेटा आपको. The relation of volume of gas with temperature. How this varies with temperature. As you increase the temperature, the volume increases. But as you increase the second factor, pressure. So as you increase the pressure, with increase in pressure, the volume decreases. Sometimes you have to explain, you have to give the reason. With increase in temperature, the particles gains kinetic energy. The particles gains what? They gains kinetic energy and they spread apart. Spread apart. So volume overall increases. With increase in pressure, particles, the spaces among the particle reduces. So you will say the spaces among the particle reduces. So particle come closer. So the volume, overall volume will decrease. The fourth and final point from this first chapter is how does, when a substance melts, for example, or boils, or any change of state in matter occurs, the opposite of melting is freezing. Boiling is condensation. Opposite of boiling is condensation. So the question is, what will happen to the arrangement and movement of the particle. This is the exact question जो कि exam में आपको आएगा इंशाल्लाह. What will happen to the arrangement and movement of particles? Arrangement and movement of particles when a substance, either option could be it melts. If a substance melts, for example, what is the change in terms of the arrangement and in terms of the movement of particle? So in melting, the arrangement particles, you will say particles gains energy and become more disorderly arranged, and they start moving randomly. In liquid as compared to solid, they start moving randomly. So same goes with if it says the freezing, so you will say particle loses energy, comes closer, and the movement uski slow ho jayegi, and they become more orderly arrangement mein aa jayenge. So this is your first chapter. Second chapter mein sabse important cheez, obviously you know that in the second chapter, which is about atoms, elements, and compounds. In this chapter, first you need to know the definition of mixture. A mixture is formed when substances are physically mixed without any fixed ratio by mass. A compound is formed when substances react chemically, when atoms chemically react. When atoms chemically react. Element. What is an element? This is an important definition, जो कि 1 mark की आती है. So element is made up of same type of atoms. Same type of atoms. Elements are made up of same type of atoms. अच्छा, इस chapter में और definitions हैं. For example, atomic structure है, atomic number, number of protons, total number of protons in the periodic table. Then there is another definition of nucleon number. The total number of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. Then there's another definition of isotopes. So isotopes are the atoms of an element. Atoms likhna, atom likhoge to incorrect hoga. Atoms, because they are more than one atom. Atoms of an element which have same protons but different neutrons. So mainly यही definitions है बेटा इस chapter में. You need to learn the definition of element, compound, mixture, isotope, atomic number, and nucleon number. Then let's move on to the major part of this chapter, which is about the chemical bonding. So what is a chemical bond? A chemical bond is a force of attraction between atoms which hold them together. There is a variety in chemical bonding in our syllabus. You can start with ionic bonding, a type of bond which is present between the oppositely charged ions. There's a strong electrostatic force. What is ionic bond? Electrostatic force, strong electrostatic force, strong electrostatic force present between oppositely charged ions. All right. So generally, ionic bond is formed when a metal reacts with non-metal. So a metal reacts with non-metal, you get an ionic compound. The main example of ionic compound is NaCl, for example, KCl, magnesium chloride, or whenever element from group 1, 2, or 3 reacts with an element from group 5, 6 or 7, it form ionic compound. Their dot and cross are extremely important, जो आपने ब्रैकेट में बनाने हैं. To save the time अभी मैं नहीं बना रहा. इसकी प्रॉपर्टीज आपको आनी चाहिए. प्रॉपर्टीज, इसकी 3 प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. There are 3 physical properties of in our syllabus. Number 1, they have high melting and boiling point. So you will not write m dot p or b dot p. मैं तो लिख रहा हूँ melting और boiling point पूरा लिखना है. You need to know the reason why ionic compound have high melting and boiling point. Because number 1, they have giant ionic lattice structures. मैं key points बता रहा हूँ बेटे आपको. Strong electrostatic forces of attraction. Electrostatic forces of attraction between oppositely charged ions. Huge amount of energy is needed to overcome the forces. This is the first property of ionic compound along with the reason. The second property is they does not conduct when solid and conduct when molten. They do conduct when molten. Ionic compounds की बात हो रही है. Solid में क्यों conduct नहीं करते? Reason? In solid, ions cannot move. Ions cannot move. That's why it does not conduct. Ionic compound does not conduct when solid, but conduct when molten or aqueous. Because in molten or aqueous, ions can move. All right. The third property, sometime ये होता है कि आपको 2 properties बेटा वो question में दे देता है, वो पूछता है कि write another third property. So the third physical property of ionic compound, they are soluble in water. They are water soluble. Then comes covalent compound, the second type of bonding. Covalent bonding. A covalent bond is formed by the mutual sharing of electron. Sharing of what? Electrons between 2 non-metals. So whenever a non-metal reacts with another non-metal, you get a covalent bond. So it is formed by the sharing of electrons. All right. So in covalent compounds, you need to know the dot and cross, which are extremely important. For example, let me draw you for water. Water, whenever you draw the dot and cross of covalent compound, first thing that you will need to write is their electronic configuration. Hydrogen atomic number 1, oxygen atomic number 8. For hydrogen 1, oxygen, it will be 2, 6. How many electron does this hydrogen require to complete its duplet? So it need 1 more. How many electron does this oxygen need? 6. तो बेटा सॉरी 2. इसको कितने चाहिए? 2. तो ये 2 शेयर करेगा. It will only share 2. It will only share 2 electron, but it will not share remaining 4 electron. Okay, so oxygen have 6 electron. It will only share 2, 1 on the hydrogen on this side and 1 on the hydrogen on this side. So since it has lone pair, so lone pair will repel. So this is oxygen and this is how you draw the lone pair. Oxygen have 2 lone pair. So let me draw the correct structure. Okay, so one hydrogen comes over here, another hydrogen comes over here. This has a bent shape. So you will write the lone pair. These are the electron will repel these hydrogens. So that's why you better avoid drawing इनको parallel में draw नहीं करना. Okay, then in physical properties. Number 1, they have low melting and boiling point because they have weak intermolecular forces, simple molecular structure. You will write they have simple molecular. ये question आना है बेटा, simple molecular structures, weak. Whenever the question is about melting and boiling point, it is always influenced by the intermolecular forces. So simple molecular structure, weak intermolecular forces, less energy is needed to overcome the forces of attraction. Okay, Then comes the special covalent compounds, which are called giant covalent. You all know that they are diamond, graphite, and silica. Both diamond and graphite are made up of carbon, right? But diamond is more harder. It has tetrahedral structure. Okay, so diamond is poor conductor, non-conductor, whereas graphite is little soft as compared to diamond. It is a very good conductor of current. Why it is good conductor? Because in graphite, one carbon is connected to 3 carbon further, and every single electron from the carbon is free. So the mobile electron in the layers of carbon atom becomes make it good conductor. Why graphite is soft? It is made up of layers of carbon atoms. ये लिखना है, वो पूछेगा why graphite is soft. और अगर वो किसी भी मेटल का पूछता है, normally question is related to metals, why it is soft, और graphite का भी पूछेगा. So you will say it is made up of layers of same sized atoms which can slide over when forced. Talking about the uses of graphite and diamond, since diamond is hard, it is used as cutting tools. It is used in cutting tools, and yeah, graphite is good conductor, so it is used as electrode. You all know during electrolysis, the next topic. And what is another use of graphite? There is another use of graphite. It is used as electrode, and not sure right now. So silica has very similar properties as SiO2. Silica has very similar properties to diamond. It is very hard, and there is no free electron, and very poor conductor. And that's it about the covalent compound. So let's talk about the metallic bonding. The third type of bonding, which is part of our syllabus, it is metallic bond. So a metallic bond is a strong electrostatic force of attraction between positive metal ions and sea of delocalized electrons. Positive metal ions and sea of delocalized electrons. So these are your positive metal ions. And this is your sea of D. You will write the word delocalized. That's the best chemical word. Delocalized electrons. Okay. So a metallic bond is all metallic elements have giant metallic structures. So this is a giant, huge structure with strong intermolecular forces. That is why metals have high melting and boiling points, right? So because they have strong intermolecular forces, as mentioned, between the metal positive ions and sea of delocalized electron. Now comes the third topic, which is favorite of all O-levels chemistry student. It's called mighty moles. So in moles, सबसे पहले आपको moles में ये पता होना चाहिए कि moles में there are 3 formulas. N is M over MR, N is C times V, N is V over 24. Okay, so whenever you are given with mass in gram, you want to find a mole, so use this formula. Concentration कैसे पता चलेगा कि ये value concentration है या volume है? So with concentration you will see जो भी concentration होगा बेटे उसके साथ लिखा हुआ होगा mole per decimeter cube. So whenever it is written like mole per decimeter cube, so वो value concentration है. Whenever you see a value with either cm cube or dm cube, that is called volume. Acha. So if you are using if you are finding the moles of gases, you will use this formula in which volume numerator should be in decimeter cube, right? Then you will be getting the correct answer for moles. Now question इसमें किस तरह का आता है? Obviously आप सबको पता है कि questions में हमें ज्यादा problem आते हैं. So question इसमें आ सकता है, for example we have ammonia 3 to ammonia. This is a balance equation. Okay, so examiner कहेगा जी how much volume of hydrogen is needed. Calculate the volume of hydrogen needed. Volume of hydrogen needed to make 3.2 grams of ammonia. What volume of hydrogen is needed? So what is the first step? Whatever you are given with, either the mass in gram, तीन चीजें given हो सकती हैं, या आपको mass in gram given हो सकता है, या आपको volume and concentration given हो सकती है, वो solution के cases में होगा. So this formula is for solutions. This formula is for solids. ये mass हो सकता है, whether it is mass of gas, mass of a liquid, mass of solid. But generally, whenever you are given with mass in gram, you will use this formula. This formula is for solution. This formula is for gases when you are given with volume. Okay, so the first step is whatever you are given with, whether it is mass in gram or concentration or just volume, go and find first you will find the moles of that particular substance using the appropriate formula. So in this formula, I will use M over MR because I know I am given with the mass in gram 3.2. So 3.2 किसका बेटा ये mass in gram है ammonia का. So how to find the MR? Nitrogen 1 है times 14 is the MR plus there are 3 hydrogens times 1. So when you do the math, it will be 17. So what is the answer? 3.2 by 17 you will get 3.2 by 17 you will get 0.188. अच्छा, क्वेश्चन में एक चीज बड़ी आपने बी वेरी विजिलेंट, वेरी फोकस्ड, कि आपको क्वेश्चन में बेटा बताया होता है कि 3 सिग्निफिकेंट फिगर या 2 सिग्निफिकेंट फिगर, और आप बड़े उसको इग्नोर करते हो. तो आपने क्वेश्चन की इंस्ट्रक्शन को इग्नोर नहीं करना. वट एवर इज गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन, प्लीज डू रीड द फुल स्टेटमेंट, कंप्लीट स्टेटमेंट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. सो दिस इज योर स्टेप 1. आपने मोल्स फाइंड कर लिए बेटा इसके. सेकंड, इसके मोल्स फाइंड किए, वट एवर इज गिवन उसके मोल्स फाइंड कर. स्टेप 2, मोल रेशो, whatever is given and what is asked. देखो ये मुझे given था, हाइड्रोजन मुझसे पूछा था. So let's apply the mole ratio, hydrogen and ammonia. First आप mole ratio आप सबको apply करने आती है 3:2. Balance ratio इसके 3 moles, इसके 2 बनाते हैं. But how many moles of ammonia do I have? I have 0.188. इसको मैं बेटा times x करूंगा. X मेरे पास moles होंगे हाइड्रोजन को. Just do the cross multiplication. So when you do the cross multiplication, it will be 2x is equal to 0.188 times 3. So what will be the answer? 0.188 times 3 divided by 0.564 divided by 2. So the answer of moles is 0.282. Now these are the moles of hydrogen. I want the volume. Now in the third step, use the appropriate formula. Step number 3, use appropriate formula and find the mass. Find whatever the variable is. Here we are looking for volume. I have the moles of hydrogen. So the formula I will use will be NB over 24. I have the N which जो मैंने अभी find किए. N मेरे पास है 0.282. I'll times it with 24. I'll get the volume in decimeter cube. Okay. So this is how you deal with the moles question. मोल्स के क्वेश्चन किस तरह के आते हैं? जो सबसे बेसिक क्वेश्चन है वो मैंने आपको बता दिया. इसके अलावा मोल्स के क्वेश्चन आते हैं परसेंटेज यील्ड के क्वेश्चन. परसेंटेज यील्ड का फॉर्मूला देख लें बेटा सब लोग. एक्चुअल यील्ड, दिस इज एक्चुअल यील्ड ओवर थ्योरेटिकल यील्ड times 100. Okay, so what is actual yield? How to identify? The major problem generally जो हमें आता है, हमें यही नहीं पता चलता कि which value is actually actual yield and which value is our theoretical yield. So let me explain you what is actual and what is theoretical. Actual yield is also known as experimental yield. And theoretical yield is the yield which calculate from the balance equation. from the balance chemical equation. Okay. Important point to note here is actual yield is always less than theoretical yield. अगर आपको नहीं भी समझ आ रही कि कौन सी एक्चुअल है कौन सी, तो फिर भी आपके पास एक हिंट है कि जो छोटी वैल्यू होती है दैट इज योर एक्चुअल यील्ड, यू विल प्लेस इन द न्यूमरेटर, और जो बड़ी वैल्यू होती है दैट इज थ्योरेटिकल इज ऑलवेज लेस देन theoretical. All right. अच्छा, this is the second type of question. थर्ड टाइप का जो क्वेश्चन आता है मोल्स में, दैट इज रिएक्टेंट इन एक्सेस और रिएक्टेंट लिमिटिंग रिएक्टेंट. अच्छा, आपको बेटा इसी केस से हम देख लेते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल दिस इज हेबर प्रोसेस. Whenever you are given the question from the like excess reactant and identify which reactant in excess, you are normally given with the information of both the reactant. For example, you are given with find how much ammonia is produced when 2.4 gram of nitrogen reacts with 23.2 cm cube of hydrogen. Okay, so now what are the steps involved? So you are given with the information of both of the reactants, hydrogen and nitrogen. So the first step, find moles. Kiske moles? Find moles of both reactants. Using appropriate formula. For nitrogen, I will use M over Mr. I'll plug the value of mass over here. The Mr of nitrogen is 28. So whatever the value is, I'm just explaining you how to do it. Then for hydrogen, since I'm given with volume, this is the unit for volume, I will use N is V over 24. But important point to note here is this volume is in centimeter cube, and I know you all know how to convert your centimeter cube to decimeter cube by dividing with 1000. How to convert deci back to centi? Multiplying with 1000. So whatever the value is, just divide it with 1000. And so this is your first step. Second step, compare the moles of both reactants. Compare the moles of both reactants. So by comparing, कैसे compare करोगे? Problem ये आता है कि सर हम किसको x करें, किसको हम fix करें. So let me help you in this particular step. First, yes, so you have two reactants. इसकी balance ratio है 1:3. अच्छा, मेरे पास दोनों के मोल्स आ गए. फॉर एग्जांपल हाइड्रोजन के मोल्स आ गए मेरे पास 0.5. आई एम नॉट श्योर, मैं कोई भी वैल्यू ले रहा हूँ. और इसके मोल्स आए 0.34. ओके, ये नाइट्रोजन के मोल्स आए. तो बेटा मैं दोनों में से किसी एक को फिक्स कर दूंगा. मैं हाइड्रोजन को कहता हूँ कि हाइड्रोजन के 0.5, अगर इफ हाइड्रोजन इज 3, it needed 1 mole of nitrogen. But if I have 0.5 moles of hydrogen, how much nitrogen is needed? तो उसको मैं कर लूंगा x. Okay, by doing the cross, although I have the moles of nitrogen in the previous step, but मैंने ये check करना है कि if I have this many moles of hydrogen, how much nitrogen is needed. फिर मैं देखूंगा कि इतनी चाहिए मेरे पास है कितनी. So then I will decide that which reactant is in excess and which reactant is limiting reactant actually. Okay, so just by doing the cross multiplication, let's say मेरे पास x की value आती है 0.20. So if I have this many moles of maximum moles of hydrogen, I need 0.20 moles of nitrogen to fully react with hydrogen. But फिर मैं देखूंगा कि how many moles of nitrogen I actually have. मुझे चाहिए 0.20, लेकिन मेरे पास है 0.34. इसका मतलब कि नाइट्रोजन इज एन एक्सेस. तो जो चीज एक्सेस में होती है उसको छोड़ देते हैं. लिमिटिंग रिएक्टेंट डिसाइड द अमाउंट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट. लिमिटिंग रिएक्टेंट डिसाइड्स द प्रोडक्ट फॉर्मेशन, अमाउंट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट. तो फिर बेटा आप एक्सेस वाले को छोड़ोगे, लिमिटिंग वाले को कंपेयर करोगे विद द प्रोडक्ट, एंड देन मोल रेशियो से इसके मोल्स निकालोगे और फिर इसका मैस निकालोगे. ऑल राइट. अच्छा, उसके बाद यहां से बेटा आपको पता है कि आपको क्वेश्चंस आते हैं फ्रॉम एम्पिरिकल एंड मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला. सो एम्पिरिकल एंड मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला क्वेश्चंस आर एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. सो यू ऑल मस्ट नो हाउ टू डील विद एम्पिरिकल and molecular formula related question. In empirical formula, दो तरह की information आपको generally given होती है. Either you are given with mass in gram or percentage of atoms. So step one is same. What is step one? Divide with mass in gram with the atomic masses. Ratio लगाओ, for example, carbon है, hydrogen है, and oxygen है. Divide every atom with the atomic mass. Okay, this is your step one. Then step two, divide all the values. आपके पास different answers आएंगे. Divide all values with the smallest value, with the smallest value. यहाँ पे let's say आपके पास value आती है 2.5, यहाँ पे 3.2 और यहाँ पे आती है जी 2.1. Which one is smallest? Definitely this one is smallest. आप इसको सबसे divide कर दो, ठीक है. फिर अगर तो आपके पास whole ratio आ गई, आपके पास एक आंसर आया, आपके पास एक आंसर आया 2, एक आंसर आ गया आपके पास 3 और एक आंसर आ गया आपके पास 1 फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फिर तो आपका वही फॉर्मूला है, C2 हो जाएगा H3NO, तो यही आपका फॉर्मूला है. बट व्हाट अगर आपके पास वैल्यू क्या आए, 1 सेकेंड, अच्छा बेटा, व्हाट आप अगर इफ यू हैव आंसर इन द डेसिमल प्लेसेस, फॉर डेसिमल प्लेस में बेटा आपने ख्याल रखना है, यू कैन नॉट राउंड ऑफ द वैल्यूज हियर. अगर आपके पास आंसर आता है 1.7 या उससे छोटा, तो यू कैन नॉट राउंड इट ऑफ. अगर आंसर है 1.8 या 1.9, फिर आप उसको 2 कर सकते हो, और अगर आंसर है 1.2, फिर उसको 1 कर सकते हो. बट इफ द आंसर इज 1.3, तो आप उसको राउंड ऑफ नहीं कर सकते. फिर उसके साथ क्या करना है, फिर उसके साथ हमने ये करना है कि इफ द वैल्यू इज फॉर एग्जांपल 3.3, फिर इसको राउंड ऑफ तो नहीं करना, और फॉर्मूले में भी नहीं लिख सकते. देन यू हैव टू मल्टीप्लाई ऑल द वैल्यूज विद अ सूटेबल नंबर, के सारी वैल्यूज होल नंबर हो जाए. तो अगर मैं इसको 2 से मल्टीप्लाई करूंगा तो ये 6.6 बन जाएगा, अगेन नॉट सूटेबल. तो लेट्स मल्टीप्लाई विद 3, तो ये बन जाएगा 6, दिस विल बी 9.9, तो 9.9 को आई कैन राइट इट एज 10 और ये बन जाएगा 3, देन दैट विल बी माय एम्पिरिकल फॉर्मूला. अच्छा, एम्पिरिकल फॉर्मूला आ गया. अब इससे मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला कैसे बनाना है, तो आपको क्वेश्चन में बेटा वो एमआर दे देगा, वो कहेगा जी द एमआर ऑफ दिस कंपाउंड इज 250, फाइंड द मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला. तो प्रीवियस स्टेप में आपने एम्पिरिकल फॉर्मूला फाइंड किया, आपने कहा जी C6H10O3 है, जो भी है, और इसका एमआर वो कह रहा है जी कि 250 है. फाइंड द मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला. टू फाइंड द मॉलिक्यूलर फॉर्मूला, इंपॉर्टेंट चीज, you first need to find the MR of empirical formula. तो आपने क्या करना है, there is a formula through which you can find the molecular, the difference, the ratio between MR molecular formula and empirical formula, which is N molecular formula mass, बड़ी value formula divided by molecular formula, MR of molecular formula, sorry, and then MR of empirical formula. So what is the MR of molecular formula? It is given. What is the MR of empirical formula? आपने इसका फाइंड करना. लेट्स से हम कहते हैं कि इसका MR आता है 125. Answer will be 2. Whatever the difference is, that answer will then be multiplied with the empirical formula, which will give you the molecular formula. In this case, it will be C12H20 and O6. I hope it helps. Okay, so yes, that's all about your मोल्स. अच्छा, इसमें परसेंटेज यील्ड का क्वेश्चन आपको पता है 2 मार्क्स का आता है. वो कहेगा जी फाइंड द परसेंटेज यील्ड ऑफ नाइट्रोजन इन अमोनियम कार्बोनेट. व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज कंपोजिशन, so whenever you want to find the percentage composition of an atom in a molecule, the formula is mass of that atom in that molecule. How many nitrogen in this molecule? There are 2, so 2 लिखूंगा मैं, times what is the MR of AR of one nitrogen? It is 14 divided by the MR of whole molecule multiply by 100. So this is how you can find the percentage composition of any single atom, percentage composition. But what if examiner says that find the mass of nitrogen in 5 gram of ammonium carbonate? Then what will you do? You will use the same formula, 2 times 14 divided by MR. So in this case, you will not multiply it with 100, but with the mass of the sample. So you will multiply it with 5, you will get the mass of this single substance. Okay, important chapter next is called electrochemistry. So let's start with electro. First, we'll focus on the important definitions. सबसे ज़्यादा जो repeat होती है, that is electrolyte. Electrolyte is the molten or aqueous form of a substance which conduct current. So a substance in molten and aqueous, solid cannot act as electrolyte. No solid can act as, why? वो पूछेगा जी, why NaCl act as electrolyte? With you electrolyte, why it does not behave as electrolyte? Because NaCl is solid, and in solid ions cannot move. But once you have dissolve NaCl in water, it will become aqueous solution of NaCl. In aqueous solution of NaCl, you will have free ions, free moving ion. It will behave as electrolyte. So in electrolyte, there should be free moving ions. Okay. You need to learn the definition of what else? Yeah. This electrolyte. Let's draw the structure shape of a cell. So electrolysis, there is another definition. How can I forget the definition of electrolysis? Electrolysis. Recent years may repeat हुई भी है बार-बार. So how to define this particular term? The breakdown of a substance into its ions when current is passed. So it is the breakdown of an ionic compound into its ions when the current is passed. The whole process is, electro is current, lysis is breakdown. So it is a breakdown of an ionic compound when the current is passed through it. Okay, let's first understand the arrangement of an electrolytic cell. You have this whole tank in which there is the electrolyte. These two conducting rods on the right and left. Important चीज है, सबने जरा गौर से सुनिए. बड़ी plate is positive, called anode. The small plate is negative, called cathode. This liquid is called electrolyte. It should be molten or aqueous. Okay. At anode, oxidation occurs. Loss of electron takes place. At cathode, reduction occurs. Gain of electron takes place. What type of electrolysis can be part of our syllabus? So electrolysis are of variety of types, starting from electrolysis of molten compounds, electrolysis of aqueous compounds, electrolysis of concentrated salts, electrolysis, purification, electroplating. इसमें से ज्यादा आपको पता है कि ionic half equations आती हैं. So let me show you the ionic half equations of molten compound. Molten में, for example, if it says molten NaCl, so the first thing for electrolysis, you need to write the ions. When you pass the current, you will get Na positive and Cl negative. Okay, so you have anode and cathode. Cathode is the negative plate, anode is the positive plate. Okay, so anode attracts anions. Anode attracts anions. Here we have only one anion, Cl negative. अच्छा, जो भी anions is here, we have lot of Na positive and Cl negative. So Cl negative will be attracted to anode and they will be discharged in the form of chlorine gas. So they'll have to change into the elemental form, which is chlorine. Chlorine की elemental form Cl2 होती है, gas. Atoms को balance करते हैं, place 2. One chloride atom has to lose 1 electron, 2 will lose 2. So this is oxidation, loss of electron. Cathode will attract cations. Cations, there is only one cation, sodium. Metals always exist as monoatomic elements, so it need 1 electron. It will gain 1. So addition of electron gain takes place. This is reduction. So you will see a solid deposit at cathode. Cathode starts increasing in size. So this is the basic part of electrolysis. Let's talk about electrolysis of dilute, NaCl dilute. Dilute is aqueous, understood, and NaCl concentrated. So the first thing that you need to write is you will write the ions present when you pass the current through both of these salts. Since they are the same, the only difference is about their dilution. This is dilute, contain more amount of water. So it has Na positive, Cl negative. Since it contain water, both of them, no matter whether they are dilute or aqueous, they have these ions, H plus and OH negative. Now we need to write the equations at anode. For this and this, it is only the anode which changes for a particular reason, and cathode for both. So let me write the equations for anode and cathode, and we all know anode is a positive terminal, cathode is the negative terminal. So anode attract the anions, and we have 2 of them. So which anion will get deposited at the anode? There is a series, anionic series, which you need to learn. Sulfate, 2 negative, nitrate, chloride, bromide, iodide, and hydroxide. Any ion which is present lower in the series will get discharged. And let me tell you, whenever solution is dilute, it is always the OH ion with deposited with discharge. So what is the equation? 4 OH ions approaches anode. Why 4? It's already balanced equation. We have short time, so that's why I'm explaining you in this way. So 4 OH ion releases 1 oxygen, 2 water, and 4 electron. 4 OH ions, whenever OH ions approaches the anode, they release 1 oxygen gas, 2 water liquid, and 4 electrons. So loss of electron occur. So this is for dilute. Whenever you have dilute salt, it is always the OH ion with deposited. But what if you have concentrated? If you have concentrated NaCl, instead of OH, it is the chloride ion. The anionic series get inverted. तो ऊपर वाला जाएगा और ऊपर वाले की बाउंड्री Cl तक है, इस चीज का ख्याल रखना है. So it is the chloride ion with deposited. With discharge, it has to lose, it has to become Cl2 because that's its elemental form. So balance करने के लिए यहाँ पे 2 लगाऊंगा. It will lose 2 electron because 1 chlorine have 1 electron, so there are 2 of them. At cathode, you all know the metallic series, electrochemical series, which says, please stop calling me a careless zebra, instead learn how copper saves gold. So the one which is present lower in the series will get discharged first. So उसमें hydrogen नीचे होता है, आप सबको पता है hydrogen. यहाँ पे एक चीज का और भी difference आपने ही देखना है बेटे. देखो anode पे 4 electrons आ रहे हैं, so you will add 4 electron, but 1 hydrogen needs only 1. So we have 4 hydrogens. So to balance, we know that hydrogen exists as H2. So to balance hydrogen atom, I'll put 2 over here. Okay, so the ratio when you electrolyte dilute NaCl, at anode you get 1 volume of gas, 1 mole of gas. At cathode you get 2 volumes of gas. Okay, so the ratio is double when you use dilute NaCl. But in this particular reaction where you have concentrated NaCl, where we are getting only 2 electrons from anode, so again hydrogen is there, we have 2 electrons to deposit, so only 1 volume, 1 mole of hydrogen gas is released. Okay, so this is about concentrated and dilute salts. Let me tell you about the copper sulfate. Copper sulfate is extremely important because in copper sulfate, the purification of copper sulfate is involved. For purification of copper sulfate. So when you do the purification of copper sulfate, you use an impure copper and a pure copper. So here you at anode, you take impure copper initially. This is impure. जिस भी चीज को आपने प्योर करना है उसको आपने उसकी डेफिनेटली इम्प्योर है तो उसको प्योर करना है, सो उसको आप एनोड पे लोगे. सो इम्प्योर एनोड, इम्प्योर कॉपर, इसको हम प्योरिफिकेशन ऑफ कॉपर कह रहे हैं. Purification of copper using copper sulfate as an electrolyte. Okay, this is pure copper. Reference, this is copper sulfate aqueous. Okay, so what will happen at anode? Oxidation occurs. याद कर लेनी है एनोड पे the anode dissolve क्योंकि कॉपर का बना हुआ है. So anode solid loses 2 electron, become aqueous. So oxidation occurs. The same copper ions, 2+ ion deposited at cathode. So this is the equation of copper sulfate, purification of copper. So this, the pink solid deposit at cathode. So what will be you observe at during and after the end of the reaction? Observation, anode gets squeezed in size and cathode deposits. All right. Okay, this is when you are doing the electrolysis of copper sulfate. Basically, you're doing this reaction to purify the copper. But what if we do the electrolysis of copper sulfate using carbon electrodes? So then you have a different story. I'm just writing the equations directly. So what ions do you have in this solution? When you, since it is aqueous, you have copper 2+ sulfate 2-, it will be H positive and OH-, since it is dilute. Okay, so at anode it is the anions, and I know that OH ions are abhi maine bataya 4 OH, 1 oxygen, 2 water, and 4 moles of electron. Okay, so at cathode copper will deposit in preference to hydrogen because copper is lower in the series. So it is the copper ion. Metal always exists in the elemental form. It will become copper solid. So what do you observe? Copper aqueous ions are becoming solid. So the color of the electrolyte changes from blue color. You will write blue color fades. Okay. Then the another category in electrolysis is electroplating. Whenever you do the electroplating, why do you do what is electroplating? Coating of a metal over another metal using electricity. So electroplating is coating of a metal over another metal using electricity. So what is the arrangement of electroplating? Important cheese, for example, you want to coat a spoon. You want to coat a spoon with gold, for example. Okay, so the spoon and the gold should be immersed into the electrolyte. So this is anode. So the object to be coated should be connected to cathode. तो ये बेटा आपका spoon जो है that is on connected to the negative terminal. और इसके ऊपर अगर gold का coat करना है तो gold should be your anode. और उसी gold का soluble salt, जब भी किसी चीज का soluble salt लेना है तो you can take nitrate. Gold nitrate ले लो. Nitrate, all nitrates are soluble. So you like current pass करोगे तो this will get deposited at cathode. अच्छा जी, उसके बाद आपको पता है कि fuel cell are extremely important. So a hydrogen oxygen fuel cell equation आप सबको आनी चाहिए. Hydrogen reacts with oxygen to make 2 moles of water. For balancing purpose, I'll put 2 over here. This is balanced. Reaction is highly exothermic, which means it releases huge amount of energy. The advantages of this cell is it is pollution free, does not produce any harmful like pollutants, or very efficient. It produces a huge amount of energy which can then be used. So that's the same fuel is used in space shuttles वगैरह में use होता है. इंजन हैज नॉट बीन डिजाइंड येट, जो हम इसको लोकल रोड पे हम इसको यूज नहीं कर सकते. ओके, डिसएडवांटेजेस क्या होते हैं बेटे इसके? व्हाट आर द डिसएडवांटेजेस? Disadvantages of this particular fuel cell is both reactants are gases, so can cause explosion, difficult to carry because they can cause sudden explosion. Okay, so ek mark ki aayegi, so you can write any of these. Then the fifth chapter is about chemical energetics. Chemical energetics, first thing that you need to learn is enthalpy. The heat change during a course of chemical reaction is called enthalpy of that reaction. It can be positive, it can be negative. If it is negative, it is called exothermic. If it is positive, it is known as endothermic. Okay, the example is exothermic combustion, for example, because it releases heat. Endothermic is melting, for example, because it absorbs heat, right? In terms of bond making and breaking, bond making, gaur se sun le meri baat, bond making. Whenever you make a bond, energy is given out. Whenever you want to break a bond, energy is needed. Bond breaking. जब भी bond break करना होगा, for example, this HH bond, जब ये bond formation हुई है, तो for example, इसकी जो bond formation है वो है, let's say 100 kilojoule. तो अगर आप इसको ब्रेक कर रहे हो तो इतनी एनर्जी यू हैव टू प्रोवाइड, प्लस साइन लगा दिया. अगर आप इसको ब्रेक कर रहे, इफ यू वांट टू ब्रेक, क्योंकि इसका न्यूमेरिकल आएगा, तो इतनी एनर्जी विल बी गिवन आउट, तो आप उसको नेगेटिव ले लो. गॉट इट? ओके, नाउ द नेक्स्ट थिंग इज यू नीड टू लर्न देयर डायग्राम्स, प्रोफाइल डायग्राम्स. गौर से देख लें. दिस इज फॉर एक्सोथर्मिक. लेबलिंग कैसे करनी है? along x axis you have energy, along y axis, along x axis you have time, on the top we have reactants. When the reaction is exothermic, when the reactant releases heat, it becomes products. So from the reactant to the peak, this is your activation energy, and from the reactant to the product, if product are niche wali side pe, so please direction of arrow is always towards the product, and do mention the delta H in this reaction, which is negative. For endothermic reactions, again time and energy. So reactants low level, products are high energy level. So I've already told you that arrow is always toward the products. So in this case, products are higher level. So delta H positive. Activation energy is always positive, but it is more positive when the reaction is endothermic. So that's why it's less likely to happen. Exothermic reaction are more easily, they are spontaneous, jaldi se ho jata. और क्या? What else in this chapter? बता दिया सब कुछ. Okay, let's move. What is activation energy? Definition of activation energy is extremely important. It is a minimum amount of energy needed for the reactant to collide. The minimum amount of energy for the reactant to react is called activation energy. So the next chapter, जो कि जिसके क्वेश्चन, अच्छा इसके क्वेश्चन भी रिपीट होंगे, आपको आएगा डिफाइन एक्टिवेशन एनर्जी, ड्रॉ द प्रोफाइल डायग्राम, label the axis, label everything like reactant, product, delta H, activation energy, what are the advantages and disadvantages. So I hope you all are listening and you all are attentive. If need break, you can have, you can't pause the video because that's a live session, man. Okay, so the next thing is chemical energetics. No, it's chemical reactions. Chemical energetics to kar liya na. Chemical reactions, सबसे फेवरेट कीवर्ड्स याद रखने हैं. 3 चैप्टर्स होते हैं, इसके 3 सब टॉपिक्स हैं. केमिकल, क्या लिख दिया दोबारा, केमिकल रेट ऑफ रिएक्शंस, रिवर्सिबल रिएक्शन, redox reaction. Okay, चले. Rate of reaction is influenced by 5 factors. Number 1, temperature. Number 2, what is the number 2 factor? Pressure. Number 3, catalyst. Number 4, concentration. So all these 4 factors varies directly with the rate of reaction. But what are the keywords? For example, in temperature, you will say when the temperature is increased, the particles gains kinetic rate of reaction increase, that's for sure. The particles gains kinetic energy. The more fractions of particle, मैं लिख देता हूँ, particles gains kinetic energy. This is the first keyword. More fraction of particles, ये exact लिखना है आपने. More fractions of particles have energy greater than activation energy. Last point का लिखना है, frequency of effective collisions increases. हर किसी में लिखना है ये frequency of effective collision. Either it will increase or it will decrease, depends on the variable that you are changing. So frequency of effective collisions सब किसी में लिखना है, हर किसी में. But with all these 4 factors, it changes directly with the rate of reaction. When you increase the temperature, the rate of reaction increases. With pressure, particle come closer, more frequency of effective collision. You increase the concentration. Concentration में क्या लिखोगे? More particles in a unit volume, more chances of effective collisions. Frequency of effective collision increases. A catalyst increases the activation energy by lowering the increases the rate of reaction by lowering the activation energy. The inverse factor is the size of particle. So the only factor which varies inversely is the size of particle, and you can also write it in the surface area. So surface area comes on the top. Size of particle बड़ा होगा तो surface area small होगा. Surface area small होगा तो less effective collisions होंगी, which led to a slower rate of reaction. अच्छा, उसके बाद there are 2 methods to measure the rate of reaction. पहला क्या है? By collecting the volume of gas after regular interval. गौर से देख लो the exact diagrams. Exact diagram गौर से देख लो सब लोग. This is the conical flask where you have your reactants. You have metal or acid. This is your metal, and this is the level of acid. You will label कोई भी acid, XYZ metal. So whenever acid metal react, they produce a salt and a gas called hydrogen. So that gas will be produced, which is then be collected using a delivery tube, which is further connected to a gas syringe. Okay, so this gas syringe is graduated. You have graduated gas syringe, and this is the plunger which is movable. I've got nice drawing. ये नहीं भूलना आपने लगाना, लेकिन आपने यूं लाइन नहीं लगानी. अगर यूं लाइन लगाओगे तो डिलीवरी ट्यूब भी बंद हो जाएगी, जिससे there is no chance. So please be very careful about all these piece of apparatuses. This is your syringe called gas syringe. Okay, graduated gas syringe. So what is the graph for this particular method? The graph initially, अच्छा, यहाँ पे time है बेटा. On this side you have volume of gas. Initially the gas volume of 0 because you haven't started with the reaction. So start with the region and start में बहुत ज्यादा होगा, ultimately straight line हो जाएगी. जहाँ पे straight line आएगी वहाँ पे आपने उसको exercise, अगर वो पूछता है कि at what time, for example यहाँ पे 50 seconds हुए हैं, so after 50 seconds the line become horizontal, तो आप कहेंगे no more gas is produced, all the reactants are used up. ठीक है, at least one of the reactant is used up, because कोई एक reactant भी खत्म होगा तो reaction stop हो जाएगा. The second method through which you can measure the rate of reaction would be the mass, by measuring the mass of reactants after regular intervals. So in this method you need balance. Okay, then you will place a cotton wool, and inside you have your reactants, so you have acid and metal again. Okay, so when the reactants react, they release a gas, gas, and gas is cotton wool allow the gas particle to move out, but it does not allow the acid to move out. So पूछेगा जी why there is a cotton wool? The cotton wool to avoid acid spray, वरना पूरे रूम में जहाँ पे पड़ा हुआ है acid वहां पे स्प्रे हो जाएगा एसेटा. सो टू अवॉइड, इसमें इनिशियली आपका जो रिएक्टेंट है उनका मास मैक्सिमम होगा. Initially the mass of the reactant is maximum, but slowly it decreases down, and this is how this is the time or time changes. And along this side the mass of the flask, the mass of the content, flask लिखना, it never touches the horizontal line, because flask अगर सारे का सारा reactor भी react कर गया, flask का mass तो still there, right? So I hope in दोनों experiment में you need stopwatch. You need what? You need stopwatch to measure the time intervals. I hope this makes sense now. Second topic in this chapter is called reversible reactions. So let me explain you with the reversible reactions. Reversible reaction is the one which proceed in both directions. This is the arrow symbol. Okay, so there are three factors which can affect what is dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium. A dynamic equilibrium is established when the rate of forward reaction equals to the rate of backward reaction. All right. So equilibrium is established when the rate of forward equals to the rate of backward. So important question आना ही आना है इंशाल्लाह. रेट ऑफ रिएक्शन से भी इंशाल्लाह आएगा. इन तीनों चैप्टर से आपको 12 मार्क्स से ज्यादा का पेपर आएगा. So गौर से सुन लो जरा मेरी बात. Okay, so reversible reaction में first factor is temperature. Temperature में आपने देखना है कि X and Y are reactant, Z is product. आपने देखना है what is the delta H. Please look for delta H. If this is negative, so you can either increase the temperature or you can decrease the temperature. If the delta H is negative, reaction is exothermic. An increase in temperature shift the equilibrium to the left side. टेम्परेचर हाई करोगे लेफ्ट पे आ जाएगा. ठीक है. रीजन में आपने लिखना है लेफ्ट साइड एब्जॉर्ब्स एनर्जी. यहाँ बड़ी सिंपल सी रीजन लिख सकते हो. रिवर्स रिएक्शन इज एंडोथर्मिक. जिसका फॉरवर्ड एक्सो होता है उसका रिवर्स एंडो होता है. तो आपने कहना है रिवर्स रिएक्शन एब्जॉर्ब्स हीट या एंडोथर्मिक. क्या मैंने कहा? when the temperature, you change the temperature when the reaction is exothermic. A high temperature favors left side, whereas a low temperature, when you decrease the temperature, equilibrium shift to the right side. Reason बतानी है उसने. कहना describe and explain. So reason में आपने लिखना है बेटे as forward reaction is exothermic. ठीक है. A low temperature shift toward the right side. क्यों जाएगा? As forward is exothermic और backward उसका क्या? Endothermic. And if the delta H is negative, exactly opposite. मतलब अगर delta H endothermic है तो high temperature favors right side, low temperature favor left side. Reason जिसका अगर high side पे आप कर रहे हो तो वो high पे जाएगा, आप कहेंगे that side absorbs energy, और low करोगे तो left पे जाएगा, आपने कहना that side releases heat. Second factor is concentration. So again, if you are reacting your sodium with HCl, and let's say you are having a reversible reaction, there's a closed system, and you get NaCl and you get hydrogen gas. And there is a condition for the equilibrium that you must have to maintain a closed system. अगर पूछेगा जी, what is the condition for equilibrium to establish the closed system? What is the characteristics of equilibrium? The definition ये होनी चाहिए. When the rate of forward reaction becomes equal to the rate of backward reaction and the concentration of both sides becomes constant. क्या मैंने कहा? When the rate of forward reaction becomes equal to the rate of reverse reaction and the concentration of both sides become constant. That is the equilibrium. That is how you establish your equilibrium. What is the condition? There should be a closed container. Other than that, you cannot achieve your equilibrium. So let's move on to the get back to concentration. High concentration, for example, आप HCl की इसमें reaction equilibrium पे था, forward और backward equal थे. Okay, perfectly balanced था. आपने क्या किया? You have added HCl in the middle of the equilibrium, so you are actually increasing the concentration of left side. Equilibrium will move to the right side. हमेशा equilibrium उस side पे जाएगा जहाँ पे concentration low होगी. क्यों जाएगा? To reduce the effect of high concentration on other side. So क्या मैंने कहा, equilibrium is always move to that side where we have lesser concentration. Reason to reduce the effect of high concentration on other side. अच्छा मैं ये भी कर सकता हूँ, मैं हाइड्रोजन बीच में से निकाल लूँ, I remove hydrogen, तो फिर भी मैंने इस साइड को लो कर दिया, तो फिर भी equilibrium right पे ही आएगा. So there's a multiple methods to which you can shift the equilibrium to the other side. Last factor is of pressure. Pressure is only applicable to gases. So this is a reaction where we have everything gas. It is not necessary that every reactant product has to be gas, but here everything is gas. So a high pressure favors that side where we have less moles of gas. क्या लिखा है मैंने? Lesser moles नहीं लिखना आपने, आपने लिखना lesser moles of gas. तो इस साइड पे टोटल 2 moles of gas है और इस साइड पे टोटल 4 moles of gas है. 1 इसका 4 इसके. हाई प्रेशर करूंगा तो इस तरफ जाएगा, लो प्रेशर करूंगा तो ज्यादा वाली साइड पे जाएगा. अगर किसी एक रिएक्शन में x plus y z है, ये भी गैस, ये भी गैस, ये भी गैस, लेकिन इसके साथ लिखा हुआ है 2, इनके साथ कुछ नहीं लिखा हुआ. इसका मतलब इसके साथ भी 1, इसके साथ भी 1, इस साइड पे टोटल 2 moles of gas, इस साइड पे भी टोटल 2, तो आप लिखेंगे no change. Whether you increase or decrease the temperature, there will be no change on the position of equilibrium. अच्छा जी, उसके बाद आ जाए बेटा आप लोग redox reactions पे चलते हैं हम लोग. अच्छा नहीं, Haber और contact process are still left. So all important Haber. Haber is used to make ammonia, NH3, which then we use to make fertilizers. We need nitrogen and hydrogen. Told you a number of times the equation. Everything is gas. This is the balance equation. From where do we get the nitrogen? From air, the fractional distillation of air. Hydrogen is collected from the cracking of hydrocarbons. Ammonia is used as fertilizers. Okay. The condition of this reaction, of this particular reaction, is the delta H of this reaction is exothermic. Forward reaction is exothermic. Okay, you need high temperature and pressure. For this, you need 450 degrees temperature, and you need a little higher pressure, 200 atm. And important thing is catalyst. You need iron oxide. Okay, so वो पूछेगा कि describe how will you get ammonia. आपने लिखना है nitrogen collected from air and hydrogen is collected from a cracking of hydrocarbon. They are mixed at 450, 200 atm using iron catalyst and in a closed system, and you get ammonia. वो पूछेगा how can you increase the yield of ammonia. गौर से सुने, how can you increase. देखो equilibrium establish होगा तो जितना forward जाएगा उतना ही backward, तो ammonia तो फिर नहीं बनेगी, जितनी बन रही उतनी वापस जा रही है. तो आपने क्या करना है, ammonia can be increased. अगर तो वो कंडीशन का पूछेगा बेटे तो लो टेम्परेचर एंड हाई प्रेशर इंक्रीजेस द यील्ड ऑफ अमोनिया. ठीक है, अगर वो पूछेगा जी व्हाट चेंज, तो आपने हाउ कैन यू इंक्रीज द यील्ड ऑफ अमोनिया, बाय कीपिंग द कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ रिएक्टेंट हाई. रिएक्टेंट की कॉन्सेंट्रेशन हाई रखोगे तो इक्विलिब्रियम राइट पे रहेगा. कीपिंग द रिएक्टेंट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन हाई. और दूसरी चीज बाय रिमूवल ऑफ अमोनिया, कॉन्टिन्यूस रिमूवल. अमोनिया निकालते रहो बीच में से, अमोनिया कम होती रहेगी एंड इक्विलिब्रियम विल स्टे ऑन द राइट साइड. सो दिस इज हाउ योर Haber वर्क्स. कॉन्टैक्ट फॉर सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड. रिएक्शन याद कर लो. इन द फर्स्ट रिएक्शन सल्फर इज बर्न्ड टू मेक सल्फर डाई. In the second reaction, sulfur is further oxidized. This reaction is reversible to make sulfur try. In this reaction, you use high temperature around 450. Pressure is not that much, around 1 to 10, I guess. Catalyst, vanadium penta. The next reaction, you add water to it. You get sulfuric acid. This is very dilute. you pass again sulfur tri gas through it, you will get oleum. इनको add करके लिख देना H2S2O7 aqueous बनेगा. Add water, so you will get 2 moles of sulfuric acid aqueous. So this is how actually the whole process of contact process works. All right. So in the contact process, you get sulfuric acid, which needs 450 degree to around 2 to 10 atm pressure. Let me write the exact pressure value as well. And you need a contact vanadium penta, vanadium 5 oxide. So the exact, if you want to write the name, vanadium 5, because that's transition metal, you have to mention the state symbol. Okay, so examiner may ask that in a Haber process, why not a more lower temperature? Because a low temperature favors the right side. So आपने कहना है temperature low करेंगे तो rate of reaction slow हो जाएगा. Pressure high करोगे तो it is not cost effective. It need a huge amount of assay. Achha, then the last in this particular step, it is called redox. Combination of 2 words, reduction and oxidation. Reduction and oxidation. Reduction is gain of electron, oxidation is loss of electron. Reduction is loss of oxygen, oxidation is gain of oxygen. Reduction is decrease in oxidation state. Oxidation is increase in oxidation state. Yeah, number. Okay, so reduction and oxidation, this is how it works. Achha, uske baad, you need to identify whether the equation is redox or not. तो आपने एक चीज मेरी कान खोल के सुन लें सब लोग. Whenever an element is involved in any reaction, whenever an element, देखो ये element नजर आ गया. अगर वो पूछ रहा है कि whether it is redox or not, or whenever you see an element on any side, whether on the reactant and product side, that's for sure a redox reaction. So that is for sure a redox. Let's prove whether it is redox or not. Achha, there are 3 rules important. वैसे तो 5 हैं, 3 are very important to assign the oxidation number. So through oxidation number, we will prove that it's a redox reaction. Every element, unreactive form is 0. Sodium अपनी elemental form is 0. Here hydrogen की elemental form ये भी 0. Compound, overall they have 0 oxidation number, but the sum of oxidation states should be equal to chlorine is group number 7 minus 1. To make it 0, hydrogen should be plus 1. Okay. Then comes to NaCl. Overall, it is again 0. So chlorine is minus 1, sodium is plus 1. You need to find out which number has been increased after and before and after, and which has been decreased, and which stays the same. So we can see clearly sodium oxidation number is increased. So oxidation, any substance जिसकी खुद की oxidation होती है is reducing agent. Agree? So hydrogen oxidation number decrease, reduction. Any substance जिसकी reduction होती है is oxidizing agent. Chlorine does not undergo any change. वो कहेगा write the ionic equation of this reaction. Ionic equation, write only those elements which undergo any state जिनका charge change हुआ है. अच्छा chlorine का तो हुआ ही नहीं. It is only the hydrogen. So write only those elements in their along with their charges which undergo any oxidation number change. So sodium changes from sodium to sodium plus 1. This was not balanced, by the way. So 2 and 2. Okay, so sodium is plus 1 and hydrogen has become H2. To balance it, I'll put 2 with hydrogen. अच्छा, important चीज यहाँ पे ये कि equation atoms की sense में balance होगी. But यहाँ पे look, one sodium atom loses only 1 electron. But there are 2 hydrogen atoms, each gain 1. लेकिन hydrogens को तो 2 चाहिए. So there should be 2 sodiums there. So this is a complete balanced ionic equation of this particular redox reaction. ठीक है? So be careful for writing the redox reactions. अच्छा, उसके बाद you need the definition of oxidizing and reducing agent. And what? Reducing agent. Oxidizing agent, any substance which oxidize other substance and reduces itself. It is an oxidizing agent. For example, generally जो non-metals होती हैं, they are good reducing agent. Oh, sorry, oxidizing agent. But as far as the color change is concerned, acidified, मैंने कहा acidified aqueous potassium manganate KMnO4. If you're writing the name, please don't forget to write the 7, because the transition metal you have to mention the like oxidation state. It changes from purple to colorless. That's the color change if the oxidation happened. The second oxidizing agent is acidified K2Cr2O7. The color change is orange to green. If the oxidation happened, then it changes from orange to green. Okay, so if you want to test any oxidizing agent, you will make it react with reducing agent. If it reacts, then that's your positive result. If it does not, then that's the same thing with you're reacting with. Okay, there is another definition of reducing agents. Generally, metals loses electrons, so they act as a reducing agent. So any substance which reduces other substance and oxidizes itself is a good reducing agent. As far as color change is concerned, potassium iodide is a good reducing agent, Ki aqueous. The color change, it changes from colorless to brown. If it changes from colorless to brown, the reduction occurs. If it does not, there is no reaction occur. All right, then the seventh chapter is about the acid, bases, and salts. So stay connected, everyone. I hope आप सब लोग सुन रहे हैं, and since you have your exams, I want you to stay connected, be active, super active, as you were in your 3 years of O levels. Acid, bases, and salts. Acids, you all know. First, you will compare their physical properties. I mean, the pH, acid have less than 7, bases have more than 7. Their taste, acids are sour, bases are bitter. Acids are corrosive, bases are slippery. They are generally non-corrosive, but strong bases are corrosive. Both are good conductor of electricity. How to test litmus paper? Acid turns red se blue, acid turns blue se red, blue to red, but bases turns red to blue. So this is how a base act, and this is how acid actually behave with the litmus paper. Okay, then the important thing is about their chemical reactions. You need to know their chemical reactions. How do they chemically react? So acids, there are 4 reactions. Acids react with metals to form salt and hydrogen gas. Observation is gas, fizzing, bubbles. With metal oxide, it produces again salt and water. With metal hydroxide, it produces same product. With metal carbonate, it produces salt, water, and gas, CO2, which turns lime water milky. Hydrogen gives pop sound with lighted splint. Okay, so these are the 4 reactions of acid, but important thing is you must know how to make the correct formula of the salt. Then there are, okay, the second reaction, this acid and hydroxide reaction is called neutralization reaction, and the ionic equation for any acid or alkali reaction is always when H plus aqueous, OH minus aqueous react, they'll make 1 molecule of water, right? So just one second, beta. All right. So then let's talk about the reactions of bases. The first reaction is with ammonium salt. Whenever bases react with ammonium salt, they produces a salt of the metal present in the base. The important thing is they produce ammonia gas. Whenever any base react with ammonia salt, preferably alkali, alkalis are soluble bases, they release ammonia gas and water is also produced. So whenever bases react with acids, there's a similar reaction we have done a few minutes ago. They produce salt and water, and you know the ionic equation is H positive, OH negative, and they'll make water. So this is how your acid bases works as far as their chemical reactions are concerned. What are strong acid and weak acid? A strong acid is the one which fully ionizes, produces more H plus ion, whereas a weak acid partially ionizes and it produces lesser H plus ion. Whereas a base, acid is proton donor, whereas a base is proton acceptor. But alkali is something which dissociate in water and produces OH minus ions. Now there are types of oxide in our syllabus. Oxides. So you need to know that metal oxides are basic except aluminum oxide and zinc oxide, which are amphoteric. Puchega, what is meant by the term amphoteric? So amphoteric oxide which react both with acid and bases, but metal oxides only react with basic oxide, and metal oxide only react. Basic oxide only react with acidic oxide, and acidic oxide only react with basic oxide. So metal oxides are basic normally, except these. Non-metal oxides are acidic. Non-metal oxides are acidic. They are acidic. They have pH less than 7, and that's the reason why SO2 and nitrogen oxide, they cause acid rain, because they when they goes into the atmosphere, they react with water vapor, they lowers the pH of the rain and it become acid rain. So non-metal oxides are acidic, metal oxides are basic, but few oxide like aluminum and zinc, they are amphoteric, means they react both with acid and alkalis. Okay, and then there is another next chapter which is about the periodic table. There's a little short topic about the preparation of salts. So for now, I'm just telling you preparation of salts, since we are running short of time. So preparation of salt, there are two types of salt. To make soluble salt, there are two methods. One is called method of excess, adding excess metal or metal oxide to acid. There is a second method called titration, in which both of the reactant has to be in the aqueous form. For insoluble salt, you need a method called precipitation, in which two soluble salt are mixed to give one insoluble and another soluble salt. Okay, chapter number 8 is about periodic table. In periodic table, you need to learn the definition of group and period. Groups are the vertical columns, upar se niche. Periods are the horizontal rows, left to right. In groups, the chemical properties are same. Chemical properties are same in groups because the reason, number of valence shell electrons, number of chemical properties depends on valence electron. So in group, number of valence shell electrons are same. That's why they show similar chemical properties. In periods, number of occupied shells are same. So period number tells us the group number, Number of occupied shells tells us the period number. Number of valence electrons tells the group numbers. That's how you can find the element in the periodic table. Okay, so in the periodic table there are groups which are part of our syllabus: group 1, group 7, transition metals, which are right there, and group 8, which are noble gases. Group 1 reactivity increases as you go top to bottom. Melting point decreases as you go top to bottom. Both of these properties opposite as you talk about group 7. Reactivity decreases and melting point increases. One thing is common, that is density. It increases in both of these groups. Okay. Then group 1 metals are soft. Soft enough can be cut with knife. Why they are soft? Because they are made up of layers. Already told you, made up of layers which can slide over. ये लिखना है आपने. That's the key word, which can slide over when forced. Group 1 metal, because they are all metals except hydrogen, they react with water, cold water. गौर से सुने. For example, sodium है. The sodium, when it reacts with cold water, sodium interact with cold water, it form metal hydroxide and hydrogen gas. When the same sodium reacts with steam, it form white solid of that metal oxide and hydrogen is given out. So there's a key difference between cold water and steam, the reaction will, and down the group reactivity increases. So the metal present in the bottom of this group would be most reactive. So they all exist as monatomic element. They tend to lose electron because they have positive, because they are metal, so they lose electron. Whereas group 7 element, they gains electron, each gain 1, become uni-negative charged particles. All exist as diatomic molecules: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. Going down the group, they all are diatomic. Fluorine is green gas. Chlorine is yellow gas at room temperature. Bromine is brown liquid. Iodine is gray solid. More reactive displaces a less reactive, so reactivity decreases. So fluorine is most reactive. Group 7 does not react. पूछेगा यही question because their outer shell, they have stable outer shell electronic configuration. They are used to create inert environment because they itself are inert, so they does not react. Talking about transition metal, which are present in the middle of the periodic table. Chemical properties. Number 1, they have variable oxidation state. Number 2, they form colored compounds. Number 3, they use as catalyst. These are their chemical properties. 4, they have very high, that's a physical property, very high melting and boiling point. Number 5, very high density, highly dense. So that's all about transition metal and your chapter called periodic table. Then beta हमारे पास है जी metals, and quickly I am going over the uses of metal because already हमने इसके reactions पढ़ लिए हैं cold water के साथ, steam के साथ. Thermal conductivity, metals are good conductor because they have C of D localized electrons. So metals में uses में there are 2 metals, aluminum and copper. Aluminum के 3 uses part of our syllabus. Number 1, they are used in food containers. They are used in aircraft, food container, and electrical wiring. आपको सबकी reason पता होनी चाहिए. Aircraft because they are less dense. They are very light food container because they are resistant to corrosion. And electrical conductor because they are good conductor. And less dense as well, because wirings, less dense as well. Copper, only one use copper part of our syllabus. It's used in electrical wiring. Because it is very good conductor of current. Alloys, you must know the definition of alloy is a mixture of metal with other element. The example of alloy include brass made up of zinc and copper, and stainless steel. Stainless steel is made up of, there's iron is essential element. Along with iron, it may contain chromium, it may have nickel and carbon, right? So the diagram of alloy is extremely important. You draw the diagram of an alloy. So alloy are made up of different sized atoms. They are more harder. So this is the diagram of an alloy. You can draw different sized atoms. So alloys are more harder and stronger. Why? Because layers cannot slide over when you force them to slide over. Reactivity series is very important as far as your paper is concerned, tomorrow's paper. So you all need to learn the reactivity series, and you need to learn that like how the position of the metal in the reactivity series decide the chemical reaction, decide the features. So on the basis of the reactivity series, there are metals which are to be extracted. We decide the method. So in our syllabus, we need to extract the aluminum from aluminum ore and iron from iron ore. The ore of iron is called bauxite. No, the ore of iron is called hematite. And ore of iron is called bauxite. So any metal which is present above carbon in the reactivity, aluminum is present above carbon and iron is present below carbon in the reactivity series. Metal present above carbon cannot be extracted using heating with carbon. So you use electrolytic reduction. So for aluminum, this is high melting solid at room temperature. First, you add aluminum to cryolite. Why? To lower the melting point. वो पूछेगा what is the role of cryolite to lower the melting point of aluminum to around 800 degrees Celsius. Originally, it is 1800 degrees Celsius, right? So when you add the aluminum to cryolite, it lowers the melting point. It acts as a solvent. It can ask about the role of the cryolite as well. Then aluminum is molten. It is taken into the electrolytic tank where the current is passed. It generates these ions. So anode and cathode are made up of graphite. Anode attracts anions. So oxide ion will be changed into oxygen gas, releasing electron. Okay, so since oxygen is produced at anode and it is made up of carbon, just imagine the silencer of your car is made up of wood, so it will burn off. In a very similar way, the oxygen produced at anode burn off the carbon anode, it produces carbon di and carbon mono. So anode has to be replaced. वो पूछेगा why anode has to be replaced, because आप कहेंगे oxygen produced at anode burns the anode made up of carbon producing CO2 and CO. Then at cathode, you will see metal deposit. Cathode attract cations, so only one cation is there. It will accept 3 electron. It will become aluminum salt. For iron, it is extracted using hematite. So 3 raw material is needed to extract iron. We need coke. We need iron ore called hematite, Fe2O3. We need calcium carbonate called limestone. This is what you have to add into the blast furnace. Into what? Into the blast furnace. Let me just remove this to make some space. So blast furnace is used to extract the iron. So this is how blast furnace actually looks like, right? You actually add everything from the top, all this raw material, and waste gases is released from other sides. You need to learn the reaction actually for extraction of iron. In the first step, carbon is burned to produce CO2. Oxidation occurs. This is oxidation. In the second step, CO2 is further reacted with coke to make CO. This is reduction. Third step, the CO produced is further reacted with iron oxide. This gives you molten iron. It still contains some impurities. This is redox reaction. And in the fourth reaction, the calcium carbonate that you have added is heated and it is decomposed thermally to produce CaO and CO2, which is in the last reaction, the CaO produced reacted with silica, which is a physical impurity attached with this iron, and you get slag CaSiO3, right? So this is all, and this reaction is called thermal decomposition, and this is called acid-base reaction because this is base, non-metal oxide. Sorry, this is acid, a non-metal oxide. This is your acid, and this is the base, a metal oxide. The overall, it is an acid-base reaction, and this is how you actually extract the both of these metals. Just quickly going through your environmental chemistry, chapter number 9. Not, I guess this is chapter 10. Yeah. So this is chapter 10, which is called environment. Paper mein kya aana hai? Gaur se sun lo. There are two parts of environment, air and water. Air mein sabse important kya hai? Pollutants, their adverse effects. So पूछेगा जी CO2, CH4, CO, NOx, and sulfur dioxide. What are their effects and what are their sources? कहाँ से आती हैं ये? CO2 कहाँ से आती है? इंजन से. मीथेन कहाँ से आती है? Decomposition of vegetation. Decomposition of vegetation. CO कहाँ से आती है? Incomplete combustion of hydrocarbon. Nitrogen कहाँ से आती है? It is released from the oxide. Lightning is one source and car engine is another source. Sulfur dioxide, volcano eruption. Our second source, car engine, fuel which contain nitrogenous content or sulfur. Effects on low. Both of these first two gases cause global warming. Greenhouse gases are ye. CO is a toxic gas. Last two gases, they both cause acid rain. Nitrogen oxide cause some smog related issues as well. Some breathing issues, breathing difficulties, but the common effect is they both cause acid rain. Okay, so how can we, fight with this climate change? कैसे हम इसको कर सकते हैं जी? We can plant trees. We can, shift to the catalytic converter. We can use catalytic converters. Catalytic converters are made up of metal called rhodium. No need to learn. Just you need to learn the reaction occurring in catalytic and in catalytic converters. On catalytic converter, oxide of nitrogen react with oxide of carbon to produce CO2 and N2. This is the same reaction. Just balance it. This is the same reaction which occurs in the catalytic converter. The oxide of nitrogen is oxidized and oxide of nitrogen is reduced, right? So yeah, you can use catalytic converter. You can shift to the renewable energy fuel cells. You can use flue gas desulfurization. Flue gas desulfurization. Calcium carbonate is used for flue gas desulfurization. Uske baad you can plant the trees, flue gas desulfurization, catalytic converter, and when you plant the trees, वहां से क्या होगी? Photosynthesis. What is the reaction for photosynthesis? CO2 reacts with water to make glucose, C6H12O6, and lot of oxygen is produced. So we all need to learn this equation. I'll put 6 over here, 6 over here, and to balance it, I will write 3 with this. 3 to the 6, 6 to the 12, and 6. I guess 6 ही आएगा, 3 नहीं आएगा. So this will be 6 oxygen. Conditions इसकी क्या है? You need UV light because that's a photochemical reaction, and chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is must needed for this particular reaction. This produces oxygen. That's why we are surviving, because of the plants. Okay, the second part of this chapter is about water. So water is extremely important for our survival. At the same time, we humans are responsible for the pollution in water. So there are 2 tests, 2 chemical tests. First, you can use copper sulfate copper sulfate anhydrous कहते हैं भाई इसको. This is white. When you add a liquid, think water. If the added liquid is water, so it will become blue, hydrated salt. These water which are attached to this salt is called water of crystallization. पूछेगा what is water of crystallization? आपने कहना है the water molecule attached to the crystals are called water of crystallization. Balance करने के लिए यहाँ पे 5 लगा लेते हैं. इसको heat करोगे तो the water of crystallization will be lost. You will get anhydrous salt. Then cobalt chloride, you add 6 water. If it is initially anhydrous is blue in color, if the added liquid is water, it become pink, right? And if you heat this stuff, hydrated, the pink color will be lost. And this is the chemical test. Physical test, you heat the water. If it boils at 100, that's the added water is the water under discussion is the pure water. अच्छा, water के अंदर there are there a long list of pollutants. तो मैं quickly उसमें से आपको बता देता हूँ. Impurities in water. It contain oxygen, dissolve oxygen. It may contain compounds, metal compounds. Other than this, it may contain sewage, and sewage के बाद it may contain nitrate and phosphate, right? Oxygen के there are advantages and disadvantages of initially first 2 dissolved substances in natural water. It is essential. This oxygen is essential for aquatic life. Metal compounds are ये इनके advantages हैं. Metal compounds are very, very important. They contain essential minerals. जिस तरह हम पानी पीते हो, mineral water. So, but some metal compounds are toxic at same time. Just 1 second, beta. 1 second. I'll be back in 1 minute. All right. So sewage is very harmful as it contain इसके अंदर harmful substances होते हैं sewage के अंदर which cause diseases. Nitrate and phosphate, they decrease level of oxygen in water, leading to eutrophication. So ये आते कहाँ से हैं? They actually releases from the fertilizers. The source of phosphates and nitrate, they actually fertilizers. Okay, so how can we treat the water? treatment is extremely important. It based on 4 steps. First, you do the filtration of polluted water to remove the insoluble particles, then sedimentation. Sedimentation is done to remove the soluble salts, soluble substances to remove insoluble. It remove insoluble. This removes soluble particles. Third step, you add carbon to it, to the water. Why do we add carbon? To remove the bad taste and bad smell. In the final step, you do the chlorination. You add chlorine to kill the bacteria. You add this to the swimming pool to kill bacteria. Okay, this is how you treat your water. Fertilizers, there are 3 important fertilizers NPK, which are essential for the plants to grow: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Okay, let's start with the final chapter, mighty among all. It's called organic. सब लोग active हो जाएं जरा. Organic chemistry. In organic chemistry, you all need to learn what are hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons. Compound which contain carbon, hydrogen only. अच्छा जी, हाइड्रोकार्बन्स कहाँ से आते हैं हमारे पास? ये are present in petroleum, which is a mixture of hydrocarbons. So how do we separate those hydrocarbons? Using a technique called fractional distillation. In fractional distillation, a fractionating column, this columns look something like this, where we have fractions to be collected at various points, right? So yeah, you actually add the crude oil or petroleum from you heat from this particular site, and on the top you get that fraction which have the lowest boiling point. So every different fraction is separated on the basis of its boiling point. Important fraction called kerosene, which is used in jet fuel. Then bitumen, which is used in road making. And other fractions are also important. So just before the exam, you all need to just go through from the fractions which are very, very important and their uses as well. ये ज़्यादा important है, तो jet fuel and this particular lubricating oil is used to make polishes and waxes. अच्छा जी, इसमें सबसे important है बेटा organic chemistry में the definition of homologous series. Class of organic compound compounds which have same functional group and show similar chemical properties. So homologous series is a class of organic compounds. It's a family of organic compound which have same functional group and show similar. You need to learn the 2 characteristics. दो तो मैंने लिख दिए यहीं पे. Same functional groups, same chemical properties, trend and physical properties differ by a group CH2. अच्छा, उसके बाद you need to know the definition of functional group. A functional group is an atom or group of atoms which decide the characteristic properties. It is an atom or group of atoms which decides the chemical properties of a homologous series. Homologous series. There are 4 functional group part of our syllabus called alkane. The general formula is CnH2n plus 2. They are saturated hydrocarbons, means they have single bond between carbon-carbon. There are 2 ways through which you can make alkane, making of or synthesis of alkane. First is cracking. What is cracking? Cracking is breaking down of larger hydrocarbon into smaller, more useful alkane, alkene, and hydrogen gas under high temperature. And catalyst called alumina or silica. So the second method of making alkane is hydrogenation of alkene. For example, you have ethene, you add hydrogen under nickel, high temperature is needed, you get ethane. So for ethene, you get ethane. So this is alkane. All right. So then the chemical reaction of alkanes are very important. There are 2 chemical reactions. First chemical reaction is their substitution, that is called free radical substitution. Substitution is replacement. For example, you have CH4, you react it with Cl2 under UV. That is why it is called photochemical reaction. Ultraviolet light is needed. One of the hydrogen is replaced with the chlorine and you get HCl as the byproduct. So this is replacement reaction. The second reaction is combustion. It is of 2 types, complete and incomplete. A complete combustion produces CO2 and water, whereas incomplete combustion produces CO and water. This is mono, this is toxic. CO2 is greenhouse gas. Okay, that's all about your alkane. Let's move on to alkene, very important in functional groups. The general formula is CnH2n. They are unsaturated. Only one way to make alkene is there by cracking. There are 4 reactions. Number 1, alkene with hydrogen in the presence of nickel, it produces alkane. Right? This is alkanes give addition reaction. This is, you must need to learn this. Addition because only one product is produced. This is called vegetable oil. So alkene are basically unsaturated fatty acids called vegetable oil, and alkane is margarine. So this is also used to produce margarine as a result of addition reaction. The second reaction, you have alkenes. For example, C2H4, you add bromine, aqueous bromine. Addition reaction occur, you get C2H4 and Br2 is attached. So this reaction is used to distinguish between alkane and alkene. If this is alkene, it changes from brown to colorless when it is alkene, but it stays same with alkane. The third and final reaction, first reaction is basically combustion. So with alkene, it gives the same product as alkane. This is extremely important. Hydration of alkene. You add steam to alkene. You get ethanol, C2H5OH. So one of the best method. The conditions are you need phosphoric acid as catalyst, 300 degree, and you need 60 atm pressure. So you mix these 2 gases under these conditions, you get ethanol. The best method, advantages is of making alcohol using this method is a fast reaction. Best alcohol is produced. It's a continuous process. Disadvantages of making alcohol from this method is it required high energy, and it is not cost effective as it needed high amount of pressure as well. Okay, then uske baad the third functional group is called alcohol. The general formula is CnH2n plus 1 OH. There are 4 of them in our syllabus: meth, eth, prop, but. So methanol, ethanol, propanol, and butanol. Making एक हमने reaction ऊपर पढ़ लिया है. The second reaction of making of alcohol is fermentation of glucose, C6H12O6. Anaerobic conditions, anaerobic. and room temperature 25 to 35, and yeast enzyme, you get C2H5OH and you get CO2. To balance it, you will put 2 before these reactants. The disadvantages of making alcohol, advantages is this is a cheap process, and raw material is renewable, glucose is renewable. And the disadvantages of using this method is it is very slow, it is a batch process, and it is not continuous. It required a lot of labor. Last, fourth functional group is called carboxylic acids. Functional general formula is CnH2n plus 1 COOH. So if N is 0, which mean in this case, this is methanoic acid. N0 methanoic acid. How to make carboxylic acid? You can start with alcohols. You do strong oxidizing agent using KMnO4, aqueous acidified. You get carboxylic acid. For example, if you have ethanol, you treat this with the ethanol, you treat with this acidified aqueous KMnO4, you get ethanoic acid. Ethanoic acid, the formula will be CH3COOH. So with acid, CO2H comes at the end of the chain. But when you react your alcohol with you put it in open air under bacteria, so mild oxidation with bacteria, you get vinegar. So there is a difference in strong oxidation and oxidation with bacteria. When you do the mild oxidation, you get vinegar. When you do the strong oxidation, you get carboxylic acid. There is only an important reaction. Already we have learned a reaction of acids with metal. They produce salt and water. With acids with metal oxide, they produce salt and hydrogen. With the metal oxide, they produce salt and water. With carbonate, they produce salt, water, and carbon dioxide. But what's important? Their carboxylic acid, reaction of carboxylic acid with alcohols. So reaction. As alcohols का uses शायद we forgot to mention. Alcohol is used as solvent and as fuel. Okay, so reactions of alcohol with carboxylic acid produces ester and water. How to write the formula of ester? Look, for example, you have alcohol called ethanol, CH3CH2OH, and you have carboxylic acid called propanoic acid. So for propanoic acid, I will write the formula like this: CH2CH3. This is propanoic acid, and this is ethanol. So this is ethanol, and this is propanoic acid. अच्छा, गौर से देखें जरा how the esters are formed. OH from this side and H from this. OH जाएगा carboxylic acid का, H उसका निकलेगा. A condensation reaction will occur, and you will get ester. The formula of ester मैं यहाँ से लिख रहा हूँ: CH2CH2 CH3CH2, and then oxygen, which is now connected with this carbon, which is connected to double bond oxygen. जैसे मर्जी लिख दो, CH2 and CH3, and water is also produced. So now this is the new linkage which is formed, and this linkage is of ester linkage whenever you see CO2 in the middle of the chain. How to write the name? The most important part, how to write the name of this particular molecule. So just focus on the oxygen which is in the chain, not out of the chain, the oxygen which is in the chain. On both sides of oxygen, we have carbon. So you start numbering from that side carbon with hydrogen. So we have 2 total carbons. So this is ethyl. Ethyl for because this is ester. 2 carbon because it's ethyl because of 2 carbon. On the other side, we have 3 carbons. So it will be propanoate. And important thing is this ethyl part comes from alcohol, which means we have used ethanol. And this propanoate comes from carboxylic acid, which means we have used propanoic acid in this reaction. If you want to draw the ester of this compound, just decrease one carbon on this side and increase one carbon on this side. The name of this will be propyl ethanoate. All right. So I hope this makes sense. The uses of esters include uses of esters include perfumes. They are used as flavoring. They are very sweet in taste, right? So yeah, artificial flavoring में use होते हैं, perfumes में use होते हैं, and they are used in variety of other substances. Okay, then comes polymers, the last topic finally. Definition of polymer is polymers are made by joining small unit called monomer. So you must know the definition of monomer and polymer. Monomer is the small basic unit of polymer. The basic unit of a polymer is called monomer. Polymers are of two types in our syllabus as far as their method of preparation is concerned. Addition. First one is addition. And then condensation. Aana hi aana inshallah exam mein. Addition may, whenever you see a bond between C and C, that's for sure an addition reaction. So addition polymer, you will see atoms attached, Cl, and then Cl, and then H's all around. This could be your one of the polymer. This is called PVC. We're gonna draw the repeat unit. So just look for repeat pattern. So ये pattern repeat हो रहा है. इसका repeat unit यही होगा C, Cl, H and H. This is the repeat unit. अगर वो कहेगा draw the monomer, just place a double bond, and this is your monomer of this particular polymer. The problem with addition polymers is they are non-biodegradable. They cannot be decomposed by bacteria, so they cause land pollution, water pollution, and air pollution when burned. Important part is about the condensation polymer. There are three of them. First one is nylon, made from dicarboxylic acid, and diamine. Nylon is, since it is addition condensation, it produces nylon, and a water molecule, small molecule water is also produced. Nylon is used in to make swimsuit, to make plastics, so there are various important uses of nylon as well. The second is terylene, also called polyester. It is made by reacting dicarboxylic acid again. So there is one monomer common in both nylon and terylene, and that is dicarboxylic acid. But in nylon, we use diamine. In terylene, we need diol. You get terylene. And you get water molecule lost. All these are synthetic polymer, whether they were addition or condensation. There is a natural polymer which is part of our syllabus. It is called protein. Protein is made by reacting amino acids. When you react so many amino acids, you get protein, reversible reaction, and water is produced. So in protein, there is amide linkage, the link between CO and NH. And in nylon, the same amide linkage is present, NH and C double bond O. There's a linkage. In terylene, there is a link between C double bond O and O, which is newly formed linkage. So that is your complete syllabus except one chapter, which is called experimental. So usko maine skip kiya abhi because aapka complete paper 99% paper inshallah isme cover ho jayega. That chapter is important obviously for P4 and few MCQs for P1. So I hope you guys enjoyed and you guys learned. If you have any question, you can ask. So important thing is you need to read the full statement of the question. If it is written as describe and explain, first you need to describe and then explain. If it is written name the substances, never write the formula, please name the substance. and decimal places are very important. Be careful while writing the repeat units in organic chemistry reactions. Be careful about the conditions of the reactions and state symbols, ionic equations, thermal decomposition equations, how to balance the redox equations. So yes, I wish you all best of luck for your tomorrow's paper. नींद पूरी करें और सुबह जल्दी उठें और then inshallah go for your exam. Start with Rabbi Zidni Ilma. Inshallah, Allah will help you all. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You just exceeded so many expectations, and I'm sure आपने आज बहुत लोगों की जिंदगियां बदल दी हैं.
मैंने तो ऐसी स्पीड लगाई है, मैंने कहा सर यही ना कहीं कि पता नहीं सर क्या बताई जा रहे हैं बच्चों को. मैंने कोशिश की है कि
just a couple of notes. For example, आपने टेरिलिन का जिक्र किया था, तो मेरा ख्याल है वो सिलेबस से इस दफा उन्होंने ना निकाल दिया है. उन्होंने उसको रिप्लेस किया है. उन्होंने उसको, क्योंकि टेरिलिन की बहुत सी टाइप्स होती हैं, तो उन्होंने उसको बोल दिया पेट, PET. वो याद करने में भी आसान है. तो अगर पॉलिएस्टर आएगा, हाँ, तो अगर पॉलिएस्टर आएगा तो वी जस्ट नीड टू मेंशन पेट. हमें टेरिलिन लिखने की भी जरूरत नहीं है. और बाकी तो आपने बता ही दिया कि मतलब क्या है सिलेबस में, क्या नहीं है. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट. और मैं कहता हूँ कमाल, आपने सारा सिलेबस कराया. Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And inshallah एग्जाम्स होते हैं तो कभी आपके साथ बैठ के इंशाल्लाह चाय भी पियेंगे और आपसे गपशप करेंगे.
जरूर सर. इन बच्चों के लिए दुआएं कर दें, अल्लाह इन लोगों को कामयाब करे. बड़ी मेहनत की है इन्होंने भी, और माँ बाप की बड़ी 3 साल की काविश होती है, बल्कि 16-17 साल की काविश होती है. तो अल्लाह इन सबको कामयाब करे.
आमीन जी, आमीन. बहुत शुक्रिया.
ओके सर, थैंक यू सो मच. टेक केयर.